My name is Emma. My husband Lucas and I have been married for almost 2 years. We originally met through our work, and we started dating soon after we met each other. In our second year of dating, Lucas proposed to me. I said yes because I had longed to have a family, but also I was already 32 years old when he proposed. My friends and colleagues around me were gradually getting married, and I might have been feeling a little rushed. I loved Lucas, and I was sure if I married him, I would be able to build a happy family with him because he was always so kind and cheerful. However, about 6 months before we got married, my husband's father, the man who would have been my father-in-law, passed away. He had been suffering from a chronic illness, and I heard he wasn't in a very good condition. At that time, we had already started making plans for the wedding, and my husband and I were both surprised and upset. After discussing it with my husband and his family, we decided to go ahead with the wedding as planned. But I guess the shock of losing a family member was still too much for them. Lucas was busy with his work, but he kept coming back to his parents-in-law's house because my mother-in-law was very exhausted after her husband's death. Lucas was worried about her too. I had seen her a few times, but after losing her husband, she couldn't even eat. So my husband visited his parents' house every day to take care of her. I was also worried about my mother-in-law, so I sometimes went with my husband, but my mother-in-law was in a rough condition to talk to me. 1 month before the wedding, my husband made a proposal to me. If things continue as they are, my mom may go crazy. I'm thinking of moving in with her when we get married. So, what do you think, Emma? To be honest, I didn't know what to say. It's not that I don't like my mother-in-law. I know that my husband is worried about her so much. But it's a different story when you are asked to move in and live with in-laws. Let me think about it, okay? I told him that and asked him to give me a few days to think about it. I talked to my parents and thought a lot about what I should do. As a result, I came to the conclusion that living with my mother-in-law would be the best way for me to spend my days with my husband, whom I loved very much. To be honest, I'm not so sure I'm keen on the idea, but even if I start a new life with my husband, he will continue to worry about my mother-in-law. And if my husband has to go to his parents-in-law's house as often as he does now, even after marriage, I thought it would be better for us to live together to start with. My husband was very happy when I accepted to live with mother. Thank you so much. Mom will be very happy. His face lighted up, and it made me happy too. In fact, when I went to my parents-in-law's house before the wedding, my mother-in-law said to me, I am sorry, Emma. You have to live with me all of a sudden. But thank you. I'm glad you are going to be my son's wife. That's what she said to me. I knew that my mother-in-law was a sweet person. And because she raised my husband, I thought Lucas was, of course, a wonderful person. So I wasn't too worried at this time. I didn't know that my life with my mother-in-law was about to start like that. A few days after we went to my parents-in-law's house to say hello, we had a successful wedding ceremony. With the blessings of many people, we became husband and wife. The next day, we started preparing to move to my in-laws' house in earnest. I was also working, so I was busy every day. But after we moved in, my mother-in-law became cheerful day by day. She always prepared meals for us on weekdays because she knew we were both working. She also does the shopping for us on a regular basis. Mom gets so much better now. I guess it's hard to be depressed when you have someone to live with. My husband seemed very happy to say that. Seeing such a happy husband, I couldn't help but began to smile. One day, after about 2 years of such a smooth, cohabiting and newlywed life, it was a sudden event. I happened to take a weekday off to use my paid vacation. I usually leave the housework to my mother-in-law, so I decided to do it all by myself that day. As I was preparing for lunch, she spoke to me from behind. "Oh, thank you, Emma. I'll help you with something too." "It's okay. I always leave it to you. Please, let me handle it today." "Oh, really? I'll be happy to then." While chatting with my mother-in-law, who was as friendly as ever, I prepared lunch. And when it was ready, I put it on the table and we sat down to eat. Then my mother-in-law opened her mouth. "Listen, Emma, this may not be the best time to ask, but I wonder if you can have a baby yet." "Excuse me?" She suddenly asked me a question I never thought I'd be asked. The side dish I was holding on slipped out from between the fork. Seeing me like this, she continued. "Well, you've already been married for a year, and you still can't even have your first child?" That's what she said, and I was at a loss. "It's not that we don't want children, but I didn't happen to be pregnant yet." "Well, Mother, they say that children are a gift, and I'm letting my timing and Lucas's timing take care of itself." When I replied with a smile, my mother-in-law's face instantly turned grim. "Timing? What are you talking about? You have to have children while you are young. Do you understand? You don't want to give birth to your child when you are older, do you?" Saying that, she put down her fork and stared at me. "It's not right that you can't conceive a single child after being married for a year and a half," she told me firmly. Maybe my mother-in-law does have a point. I've always had irregular cycles, and I never really paid much attention to it. My mother-in-law told me that maybe there was something wrong with me, and that's when I started to think about it. As a result, Lucas and I decided to go for a fertility test together during his next day off. I was very anxious inside during the test. It turned out that my body had a constitution that made it difficult for me to conceive a child. I was not sure what to do. But after consulting with Lucas, we decided to share this to my mother-in-law. "May I have a word with you?" After dinner, we decided to tell her the truth. "What do you want to talk about? What's wrong?" With my husband by her side, my mother-in-law remained in her usual gentle mood, and I didn't feel the pressure I felt the other day. But I couldn't start a conversation because I knew it wasn't a good news. Then my husband opened his mouth instead. "Mom, maybe we won't be able to have a baby until later. And in the worst case scenario, we may not be able to have a baby." Then my mother-in-law's eyes widened at my husband's words, and she said, "Wait a minute! What are you talking about? Are you kidding me?" We've been tested, and it turns out that Emma is constitutionally incapable of conceiving a child. I continued to feel awkward. My mother-in-law was staring at me, and I could feel it even if I didn't want to. Is it true, Emma? My mother-in-law questioned me like that. And I replied, Yes, I'm sorry. That was all I could say that day. But the next day, my hell began. My mother-in-law, who had been so kind to me, started to ignore me. My husband used to be the first to eat breakfast, so I ate with my mother-in-law after him. But for some reason, my mother-in-law started eating alone. Please don't eat my food without my permission. There's no portion for you. That's what she told me when I tried to prepare my own portion. If I tried to make my own meal, my mother-in-law would say I was in the way. I couldn't talk back, so I ended up going to a deli and grabbed some sandwiches before going to work. One day, before going to bed, my husband said to me, Emma, I know you're busy, but could you please do your chores a little better? What? Don't let my mom do all the work. I know she does all the housework for you. Besides, my wardrobe is too messy lately, you know. Can you put my clothes and stuff more neatly? I never knew what that meant. I always do laundry for me and my husband, and I am the one who puts them in my husband's wardrobe. But every time I put it in there, I fold it neatly and put it in neatly. I even folded them yesterday, like I always do. But he never listened to me. Then look at it later. It's a mess. With that, he went to bed. I looked at his wardrobe and found it was a real mess, a complete change from when I put it away. What's this? Who would do such a thing? You don't even have to think about it. My mother-in-law is the one who is home alone all day. But I thought maybe it just happened to be messed up when my husband was taking it out. I decided to wait and see, so I decided to wait and see. But the next day, Lucas told me something I never thought I would hear. Emma, are you harassing my mom? What? What are you talking about? I was so confused because I had no idea what he was talking about. Don't play dumb with me. You broke her mug cup today, didn't you? Well, she dropped it herself. I didn't even touch it. It was the day my mother-in-law bought her favorite mug cup. I know that while I was hanging the laundry out to dry, I heard a rattling sound coming from inside the house, and my mother-in-law was lamenting about it. But for some reason, my husband didn't believe me. How come you did such a thing, knowing that the mug was her favorite? He blamed me. My husband didn't believe me, even though I repeatedly tell him that I didn't do it. On the contrary, he takes my mother-in-law's side without any proof, keeps accusing me of doing it. Why do you always believe what your mother says? I told you I didn't do it. And I didn't do anything to your wardrobe either. If anyone is going to make a mess, it's your mother. I'm the one being harassed. Why can't you see that? I got emotional and told him like that. Then my husband's face turned red in anger. That's enough. How much more can you make my mother look bad? That's why he yelled at me. I froze on the spot because I never heard him say such a thing before. Then my husband sighed and said, Whatever. I'm disappointed in you. Go home to your parents for a while and cool off. Then he walked out of the room. Cool off? Me? I honestly didn't know what was going on. But it was true that I didn't want to be in this house any longer. I went back to my parents' house with some necessities. My parents were surprised that I suddenly came home. But when I told them about what happened, they said I didn't have to go back. The stress of being away from my parents-in-law's house was rapidly disappearing. I was commuting to work from my parents' house and was living a reasonably fulfilling life. About a month later, I got a text message from my husband. Emma, I know you want to come home. I will forgive you if you apologize to my mom. The moment I saw that email, I felt a surge of anger towards my husband and mother-in-law that I almost forgotten about. Why should I apologize? Why do I have to be the bad guy? Okay, I'm going home tomorrow. I texted him back. The next day, I went to my parents-in-law's house to take revenge on my husband and mother-in-law. After work, I went there for the first time in a month, and I pressed the intercom. My mother-in-law answered. My husband had not come home from work yet. As soon as she saw me, I'm so glad you finally came home, Mrs. Bad Wife. I wonder if you've reflected on what you did. She smiled at me as if she was looking down on me inside. I was taken to the living room, but as expected, my mother-in-law's ranting didn't stop until my husband returned. I heard you told Lucas that it was my fault. How could he believe that? You are just a stranger to us. You've been in the way from the beginning, you know. I wanted to yell at her, but I held it in until my husband came home. He came home a few minutes later. Emma, did you apologize to her? That was the first thing he said. No, I didn't. There's nothing to apologize for. When I said that, my mother-in-law and my husband stormed in on me. If that's the case, why did you come back? I was trying to get you to come back to live with us. I took a deep breath and said, Thank you for everything you have done for me. That's what I came here to say. My husband and my mother-in-law froze at these unimaginable words. And then I took the divorce papers out of my bag and held them out to my husband. I've had enough of playing family with you two. Let's go back to being strangers. When I said that, Lucas got angry with his face deep red. Of course, then. Let's do that right now. Then he got desperate, signed the divorce papers, and pushed them on me. That's enough. You get the hell out of my house, you trashy wife. You just harassed my mother so much. I laughed and laughed in response. What's so funny? I'm sorry. It's just so stupid. You still think you were right about your mother? Lucas was upset when I said that and said, What? Of course, she's right. And then I showed him a video. The screen was blacked out, but it was a recording of my mother-in-law's outburst at me. What the? My mother-in-law's face turned pale as she listened to it. Hey, what the hell is this? He asked to his mother, but I answered instead. I have heard a lot of abusive words from your mother. So I've been making a video whenever I am alone with her, ever since I had the idea. Then, why didn't you show it to me earlier? And then this wouldn't have happened. I was so disappointed in Lucas who again blamed me for his own mistake. How funny! If I hadn't shown it to you, you wouldn't even have believed me, right? We're husband and wife, and you didn't intervene or try to solve the problem. You only took your mother's side. When I said this to him, he fell silent and turned his head down. By the way, I didn't do the wardrobe thing either. If you think I'm lying, go to the police and ask for fingerprints or whatever they do. I'm sure your mother's fingerprints are all over the place. When I said that, he huffed and said, Mom, please say she's lying. He confirmed it to her with a pale face. As expected, my mother-in-law was intimidated by the word police. She didn't deny what she has done so far. So, I'm going to say goodbye now. Bye. As I was about to leave, my husband came up behind me and said, Wait, Emma, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He began to string together lines that I've only seen in a comic book. But my feelings have not changed. Be good to your favorite mother. With that, I left my parents-in-law's house. After that, my husband contacted me a lot for a while, but I ignored him completely. I even hired a lawyer. I sued my ex-husband and my mother-in-law for alimony, claiming emotional distress, but it wouldn't make any difference. I was able to get them to pay me a reasonable amount of money. I don't know what my ex-husband and mother-in-law are doing now, and I am not interested in that. I now rent an apartment near my parents' house, and I am living a much more fulfilling life than before. I realized that marriage is not something to be rushed into, and that you should get married only after you know your partner's family properly. From now on, I would like to make the most of my reflection and try to be a better judge of people.